delighted to have a full pack programme for you this morning. We are going to, in a moment, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. We're absolutely delighted to have Emma Revie from the Trussell Trust. We're then going to have a look at our annual report, which is something that we unveil at this time of the year. That's why we have the event in May. So my colleague Katie's going to do that. Then I will just bring us a little bit up to speed, and then we always love to hear from a couple of our advocates, who are the people out on the ground, in churches, in charities. They're the ones that are making use of Act 45 to help people in their community. So we're going to hear from a couple of them, and my colleague Rona is going to introduce them. And then the bit you'll all be waiting for, which is your chance to bring your questions. So do settle down, and before I kind of get kicking off with that programme, just to introduce our team that are on the call. So you may, if you get our mail shots, have heard that we are a small team. We are very proud of that, a small, efficient team, and there's 4 of us who all work part-time. So I'm the Executive Director, have been with Act 45 since 2009 when it began. And we have Katie Green, who is our Communications Director. She has been the one who's put together our annual report and will be sharing that with us. Rona Elwood, our Operations Director, she looks after all our advocates and all our churches and charities. And Carol Gieltry, who is our administrator, and she is probably the one that you might have had as first point of contact if you've ever contacted the admin at email. She also sends out information to our admin, and she makes all our requests live, so she sees all the day-to-day detail. Also, nice to have on the call today our Chair of Trustees, Julian Richer. He's not just our Chair of Trustees, he founded Act 45, and we will hear from him at the end, so don't worry, we will hear from him too. So without further ado, Act 45 has been going since 2009, as I mentioned. You know, when we started then, it was off the back of the financial crash, and we really, there was a lot of need. There was also a lot of donors who wanted to make sure that their money really counted. And then, of course, we've gone through a decade of austerity. And now, unfortunately, we're in a situation where things are, well, as we'll hear from Emma, not in a good place, and Act 45 feels like it's needed more than ever. So I'm delighted to hand over to Emma, who's going to share a bit about the national picture in UK poverty. Over to you, Emma.
Oh, thanks so much, Jenny, and thank you so much for having me here today. It's a real joy to meet with you. I've just seen Woking Food Bank has joined the call, which is exciting, because our food banks work in partnership with you in lots of different ways, and it's just a great opportunity to come and say thank you for all you do to support our food banks and in partnership with our food banks. But Jenny had asked me just to speak briefly about the scale of need that we're seeing across our food banks, but I thought maybe before I do that, just spend a minute or two just giving you a bit of background to the Trussell Trust. Some of you will know us very well, and others maybe less so. We're an anti-poverty charity, but also a community of 1,400 food bank centres based right the way across the UK, and together, as well as providing emergency food for people in financial hardship, we campaign for a future where no one has to turn to a food bank for help. What you may not know is that beyond providing emergency food, many of the food banks in our network also make sure that there are advice services and other support to help people in financial hardship, with a view, and part of that work is the work we do together with you. Because our hope is always that if we can maximise somebody's income or connect them to the right support, they might not have to come again to our food bank. And churches really lie at the heart of the operation of our food banks. Almost all of the food banks in our network are supported by volunteers from local churches and receive food donations and financial support. And also of those 1,400 food bank centres, 800 of them are actually based in church buildings. And so for many churches up and down the country, running and supporting their local food bank is a really important part of their ministry in their communities. So to just talk about the scale of need we're seeing, we talk a lot at Trussell Trust about destitution. And that's that very extreme form of poverty, which I know is something you'll all be familiar with through your work as well. And we know that the vast majority of people who are referred to our food banks will be experiencing destitution at the point that they come. The average household income of somebody coming to a food bank, household income, is just £57 a week after housing costs, so very low levels of income, which means that many people who are coming to us are already and have been for some time making just impossible decisions just to get through the week, whether that's choosing between heating their homes or eating, cutting back on their own meals so as to make sure that there's food for their children, or agonising over how they can possibly cover the unexpected costs like a fridge breaking down or a car MOT, which I know is so important with your work as well. Last month, we released our 12-month data, so our end of year stats, we call them, so between April of last year and March of this year. And it showed that it was our busiest year on record. Food banks just in our network provided almost 3 million emergency food parcels to people in crisis. That's more than we did during the pandemic. And it's 37% higher than over the same period, the previous 12-month period, the year before. Of those 3 million parcels, 1 million of them were for children. And I was recalling recently talking to our food banks just 5 years ago, back in 2019, and the total number of parcels we gave at that point was about the same as the number of parcels we've provided in the last year to children. We've seen at our food banks in this last 12 months, 750,000 people who came to us for the first time ever. And food banks are having to extend their opening hours because more people who are in work are having to come to the food banks at the end of their working day. And about 20% of people who have received parcels in the last month are in work. So whilst the cost of living crisis and definitely the pandemic before that have both had a significant impact on the level of need we're seeing, I think it's important to recognise that this rising need for food banks is part of a much longer term trend. In the last 5 years, we've more than doubled the number of people that we're supporting through our food banks. And our research is really clear that although the cost of living crisis and the pandemic have exacerbated the situation, it's really exposed the root cause of the problem, which is an inadequate social security system that's just not providing people with enough money to afford the essentials. So how are we responding to this? We believe at the Trussell Trust that there's always going to be a role for churches and community groups to respond to the needs of their community and help people when they're facing crisis. And our role as food banks is beyond the distribution of food aid. It's to provide places of community where people can form relationships, receive and give informal support to one another and have a sense of belonging. And as local churches and local organisations, this is something we do. We all do it together. We provide places of belonging. That's always going to be necessary. But when we talk about ending the need for food banks, what we mean is ending the need for the mass distribution of food aid. Because when people are left without enough income to afford the essentials, we believe we have a responsibility to call for justice. And one example of how we're doing this is through our Guarantee Our Essentials campaign, which we've launched in partnership with Joseph Rowntree Foundation. It's being supported by lots of organisations, including Christians Against Poverty, the Methodist Church, Baptists Together, and the United Reformed Church and the Salvation Army, amongst many, many others. We know that many people who come to food banks are on universal credit, and the income they receive is not covering all of their essential needs. And so the campaign simply asks the government to establish an independent process to ensure that the level that the basic rate of universal credit is set at is enough to afford the essentials. And we've done some calculations, and we know for a single person to afford just the essentials would be about £120 a week. And at the moment, the standard allowance of universal credit is £85. So it comes up short every week by £35, which is why it shouldn't be a surprise to us that we're seeing more people accessing both of our services when they simply can't cover the costs of essentials. I know this all sounds quite bleak when you're seeing those numbers. I know for our food banks it's really hard day in, day out to hear the stories of people, and I imagine your advocates will say the same thing. So how do we continue to give hope and have hope in that? We find inspiration from Micah 6 verse 8, that compassion and kindness give us hope that we can get through today. Justice gives us hope that tomorrow can and will be different. And as we seek together to walk humbly with God, we see the goodness and strength and incredible innate value of every person that we meet, as we build churches and communities in which everyone is welcome and no one faces that struggle against poverty alone. And churches play such an invaluable role in this, in providing support to their communities every day, and through your work with Acts 435, connecting people who can give with those people who are in need. But I think together, we, our staff, our volunteers and our food banks believe we have to work together also to build a future where churches and their communities don't have to provide food to people to ensure that they can get through the day. A future where everyone can afford those essentials. And I believe that taking real solutions like the Essentials Guarantee to decision makers and speaking to them about the need for interventions on this is part of our calling together. Things absolutely can change, and it's this that really sustains my hope for the future, and I hope yours too. So I hope that's me giving you enough of an overview of the work that we're doing together.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Emma. It is really great to hear about the way that charities and churches like the Methodist, the whole networks of churches are coming together as well, because the scale of this problem is huge. And on this call, we've got both advocates based in churches and charities and some of our donors, which is wonderful to be able to share kind of what we're doing on the ground. And individual people giving is also part of it. But Acts 45 has always sought to fall where people fall through the gaps. That's always going to happen, but it shouldn't happen to the extent it is now, and that's where we need government interaction, and we need all these organisations to work together to find those solutions. Emma's got life at the Trussell Trust is very, very busy, so we're actually going to let Emma slip off. So before we do, I wondered if there was any particular burning question anyone had for her, specific to what she's just shared, before we carry on with our focus on Acts 435. If there is, just quickly raise your hand, and if not, I've got one from Pat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
First of all, thank you, Emma. You're amazing. You're amazing. My question is, we get a lot of referrals that come to us who've gone to the food banks and they're being told that they can only have 3 lots of food. Is there anything else we can do? Because obviously we're going out and sourcing them elsewhere, but we've run out. We've basically run out. We're having a lot of children coming to us, and the food is just, is there anything we can do? Any other way we can access where we can say, can you give this family 1 more bag of food, please?
So there's no limit to the number of times somebody can come to a food bank. It's often down to the referral agency. So a referral agent that's just referring somebody and not providing support, or not trying to tackle the underlying reason somebody comes to a food bank. So a food bank might go back to a referral agency and say somebody shouldn't be continuously being referred without being given support. So that's a big part of it. But as we all know, it's harder to plug people in to support, because negative budgets are just standard now, where money is just not adding up. Oh, I do apologise. I don't know why my phone is not on silent. And so that's part of the issue. But definitely there's not, from Trussell Trust, there's not a limit. And I don't know which food banks necessarily, but if somebody's still needing it, the other place to go is local authority. So the Household Support Fund has been put in place, and really we want people to have cash so they can go to the supermarket rather than having to come to the food bank. And so depending on which local authority, the Household Support Fund's been extended for 12 months, and hopefully there should be more crisis support there.
Can I just ask one other question as well? What we have sent people to where there is food and everything, and they're charging like £7.50. What do we do if they haven't got the £7.50 to buy this bag of food? Because this is happening quite a lot as well where we are.
If there's a Trussell Trust food bank near you, they won't be charging. So if you want to get in touch with Jenny, and I can try and hook you up. I don't know if whereabouts are you, Pat?
Chadderton. Sorry, I'm not Chadderton. Oldham.
Oldham. So we've got a food bank in Oldham, so they wouldn't ever charge. it's sometimes, I know there's different types of food aid provision that have set up like pantries and community groups and stuff, and they have different models for how they do it. But if I can help with connecting you, in case, I suspect you probably are already connected with Oldham Food Bank, but I think, say again.
You know as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Pat. Great. Well, yes, we as Katie just put in the chat, we do work with a number of food banks, and would love to work with more. This is very much a partnership where people come in for food, they have lots of other needs. When people come to Act 45 advocates with a need for food, our first go-to would be, well, let's, is a food bank there first, and then we can help with the other things. So thank you ever so much, Emma, for your time to join us today, and we wish you well with the campaign for sure.
Thank you. Lovely to see you all. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
Right, I'm going to now pass on to my colleague Katie, who is going to unveil our annual report, share some of our stories and stats from the previous year with you.
Fabulous, thank you, Jenny. Rona, would you be able to share with us the first slide, please? So this is our annual report, which spans 2021 to 2022, and our accounts have all just been put together, so we have those now to show you, which is great. Have you shared, Rona? I can't see it. No, that's fine. So I suppose just as Rona's getting that up, I suppose following on from what Emma was just saying, about this consistency, I suppose, and last year's annual report for us was called Consistency During Crisis. And we've named this year our report Continuing During Crisis, because as we obviously a year and a half after the pandemic started, we continued to see that crisis going on, and obviously it's never really gone away, but it had continued to be there. And as a charity, while we the needs and our input and output, our needs and the needs that we were meeting had continued to increase during the pandemic, we've just continued to see that increase during this financial year. So if you pop onto the next slide, Rona, thank you. So I'm just going to give you a brief, quick whistle-stop tour, back one, of what you can expect from our annual report. Obviously, at the end, you'll see all our financial statements. If you love the actual sort of figures, then that sort of some of them are within this annual report, but you can obviously view them on the website too. So here we've got our Executive Director's statement from Jenny, and Jenny just really covers a few points for the financial year, which included our larger needs, our larger gifts fund coming to an end, and how we supported 247 individuals with that larger gifts fund, and how thankful we were to the trusts that help and the individuals that helped that to happen over those 2 years as well. She also speaks about our new website, which I'm sure you'll have all now seen, the challenges that proved around that, including a large amount of our staff time that was taken up, but how we've now taken big steps forward in achieving our big dreams with our website. So do read about that there. Julian as well has given us our Chair of Trustees statement, which is fab, and it's just really evident his pride and the trustees' pride really in the charity taking the big leap this financial year with our new website and being in a stronger position to move forward. And proud as well, I suppose, that our beneficiaries didn't suffer during the time of change with the website and those teething problems that we encountered there as well. If you move on to the next slide, Rona, please. Thank you. So there's just a couple of pages on our annual report that shows you just what happened in sort of this financial year, and there was just some exciting things, so I wanted to point a few out to you really. We've obviously got our normal appeals that we run, so our school uniform appeal in the August. We attended the Jubilee Plus conference in the November of 2021, which was a big boost for us. They showed our video up the front, and just to be able to connect with churches just on the ground, seeing those needs was fantastic. And our Christmas campaign was brilliant in 2021 as well. Over £88,000 given to individuals and families at Christmas time. The January of 2022 was really exciting for us as a charity, and we had a few crazy days as we purposefully went on Look North. So we had an article featuring one of our recipients and one of our partner charities, and also a segment as well with an interview with Jenny. For us, our emails and phones just went a bit crazy for a few days, and actually we were able to bless Rebecca, who you can see on that photo there at the bottom. We were able to bless her with some specific needs that she had. We'd already helped her with some other things as well, so that was fantastic. If you can go to the next slide, Rona. Fab. So just two things I want to point out here really. In the June of 2022, we hit £4 million given directly to individuals in need. And then, as you can see, our new website launched as well, and Jenny will come on to in a moment talking through the next steps for Acts 435, and our new website will obviously be a part of that. So yeah, that was a big momentous moment for us as well. So if you just bob onto the last slide, Rona. Oh no, sorry, there's one more. So these are just our stats at a glance. Obviously, as I said, you can view all the ins and outs of all the financial data on our annual report as well, but just at a glance. So this financial year we helped over 7,000 people, 7,000 individuals with specific needs, which is just incredible, with £841,730 going directly to their need. And on those donations we were able to claim £154,373, and as if you have been around for a while, you might know that all the gift aid that we can claim on donations is what helps us with our administration costs and our running costs as a charity, which means we can guarantee that 100% of every donation goes towards the person's need, which is just fantastic. So this is the final slide, Rona, please. So you can find our annual report in the resources section on our website, and I think Rona's going to post a link into the chat so you can click on it to find it and have a read later. Also in there, as I said, is our actual accounts, or some of them, and obviously you can view the rest on the Charity Commission website as well. But again, if you've got any questions, we can address those with the questions and answers at the end. But I hope that gives you a summary, a bit of a flavour, and I want to read it. So thank you. I'll pass back to you, Jenny.
Great, thanks, Katie. Great piece of work. And in that report as well, there are some stories, but we haven't mentioned them now because, as I mentioned, our advocates will bring some of their own stories on this call instead. But really, it was a momentous end of the year with the launch of the new website, and I just wanted to let you know, for those of you who might not have seen our updates in our mail shot, how things have been going since, really, because that just goes up till the end of July. Just to share that perhaps things have been fairly steady over the last over that summer and autumn, and then we had a quite incredible November and December. For the first time, donors gave over £100,000. So you know, it really, one of the things we're always keen to let our advocates know is that this isn't loads of grant funds. We're not just sat on loads of money. This is, in the vast majority, individual people giving to those needs. So if you're on this call and you're a donor, you are just amazing and part of a wonderful community of donors who are giving each month. And really, if everyone stopped giving tomorrow, then people wouldn't get any support. It is as simple as that. It really is connecting people who want to help with those who are in need. And we're going to hear from our advocates just how amazing it is to have that resource. So we had an incredible November and December. Let me share with you that our trustees were a bit surprised that they weren't seeing more need given all we'd heard about in the news. Well, that kind of caught up with us in March of this year. So in March, we really saw our needs start to spiral's the wrong word, but really go up, and we had over 350 live requests at one point on our website. And really we saw that that was a mixture of things. It was our advocates posting more needs, just seeing more need out there. There was, for a time, a bit less donor giving, but then we also had upped our limit. So those who go onto our website often You may have noticed that the limit used to be £150 per item, but we did raise that to £200 in January. The reason really, given inflation and the fact we hadn't raised it for a number of years, was just the fact that you can't really find a cheap, decent washing machine or cooker for £150. It's hard enough for 200. So we really scoped it out. You may wonder where the option of local charity shops are. Some advocates can access that, but others can't. And we really wanted to make it accessible so that people can be blessed with this item they so desperately need. So the increase to £200 also meant that March, we really saw the needs. And what is just amazing to me, and really the thing I want to get across, is that towards the end of March, I put in our mail shot that goes out to 4,000 to 5,000 people, saying, there's a lot of need. Can you possibly help? And the response we got was just incredible. And so therefore we were able to bring all the needs down. But it also enabled us to think, actually, given the situation that we've heard about from Emma, that we're seeing, we need to just keep being mindful of how we generate enough income to support all the needs we see. Every single week we get new donors giving, and we really don't take that for granted. Every single week, new people join our community of donors. And what that shows us is that when people hear about Acts 45, they love that way of giving. And we just need to keep getting in front of more people, working through our local church and charity partners, but also looking at other ways like social media and other opportunities to keep reaching new donors. The other thing is that we have done a bit of grant funding applications, and we were delighted to find out just last week that we'd been gifted a grant of £30,000. That just really helps balance out all those individual donors that are giving. The model is always going to be individual people, but it does enable us to give some extra support and is part of the way that we are looking to make sure that we continue to sustain this as we grow. Katie referenced our website. This is now on a framework that we can really build from, and we're looking forward to just adding additional functionality over the months and years to come, making sure that it works for all. And if you were with us in those difficult months last summer, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for your patience with any website teething problems we had. But I hope you'll agree that we're in a much better place now, and things will push forwards, I hope. So that's a bit of where we're at. So as you say, we'll take some questions after we've heard from our advocates, but I'm going to hand over now to Rona to introduce two of our advocates, and we're really looking forward to hearing from them.
Thank you, Jenny, and good morning, everyone. It really is my pleasure to introduce you to a couple of our advocates who have kindly agreed to share this morning about their experience of partnering with Acts 435. A large part of my role is working closely with our network of advocates in churches and charities around the UK, supporting them as they use Acts 435 as a resource as they seek to serve those in need in their communities. I'm in awe and inspired by the power of work our advocates are doing to serve those in need. And it is our privilege to play a part in facilitating the connection between our wonderfully generous donors who wish to help and the incredible advocates who are taking that help right to where it is most needed. The first advocate I would like to introduce is Alison Harvey, who is one of a group of advocates based at Lewisham Food Bank in London. Lewisham Food Bank first started partnering with us in June 2020 at the height of the pandemic, in a bid to do even more to support their clients at a time of desperate need and difficult restrictions. Since that time, they have posted an incredible 238 requests on the Acts 45 website on behalf of their clients. Alison, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rona. It's nice to see everybody. Had loads of emails with Rona, so it's quite nice to see her actually. As Rona said, my name's Alison Harvey. I started volunteering at the Trussell Trust Food Bank in Lewisham about 10 years ago. I'd never actually heard of it, really. I was living overseas. I came back to the UK and I thought, what am I going to do here? And my mum said, oh, I think there's food banks. Why don't you go and volunteer at a food bank or something like that? So I did. So I ended up in Lewisham, which is the other side of the river from me, but that's fine. You know, I can get there on the train. And at that time, a food bank session was full of leisurely chats with the clients, leisurely chats with the other volunteers and staff, we would actually fight sometimes to attend to a client because there were so few of them that came through the door. And so we just caught up with each other and had lots of coffee. We did help the clients, we did pray with them and all of that, but you know, there weren't many. And I realise now that in the month of April this year, the 6 food bank centres in Lewisham fed like 2,000 clients or something. So, you know, the work is very different now. I don't actually do anything in the food bank now, but obviously I do stuff with ACTS. And again, I had never heard of ACTS 435 until 2020. But I thought, well, that sounds like a great thing to do during the lockdown, get involved with clients in that way. And we had tons of clients that had, you know, they were really happy to get the food, but, you know, they didn't have anywhere to store it or cook it, or, you know, so it became, you know, really obvious that this was a great way to kind of deal with a lot of issues, really. Ironically, the first clients we placed on ACTS didn't want anything to do with food or cooking. They were a young Brazilian couple who were receiving food bank parcels from us through delivery, and we chatted to them on Zoom, and we became aware that they had a young baby and they had very few resources for their baby. So my first request to ACTS was for a baby changing table, and it was all done and dusted in a week, and I was just like, oh, does this work? This is amazing. So it was very exciting because, you know, you put your request in and you think, oh, is anybody going to respond? And it was so quick. And obviously the couple were amazed and excited too. Then in 2021, I was thinking about clients that were very memorable. And we had a client, I never met him, but we had some very good phone conversations. And he was a middle-aged guy. He was referred to the food bank through his universal credit coach. And he'd been homeless, living in a shelter, and then moved into a flat. And obviously, there was nothing in the flat. So he told me he'd been out on the streets and found things, and he'd sort of put together some furniture and stuff. And he was very, you know, he's quite happy about that. But he said, obviously, he didn't have white goods and stuff, appliances, and he couldn't obviously put those together. So when I told him that we could probably get him a cooker and a fridge through ACTS, we would have a go, he said, I'm close to tears. He said, I'm very anxious. I'm a very anxious person, but I'm so grateful that people are fighting my corner. And that was just really lovely. And then obviously he got his 2 items within a month of the request, which was amazing. So this is his message. Good afternoon, Alison. I hope you're well. It was my utmost pleasure to send positive feedback, because obviously we asked for a thank you, and my duty, which I also quite liked. There was no way I could progress in my life without your help, let alone not acknowledge it. I'll always be very grateful till the day I die. I get so much joy just being able to get a pint of milk and put it in my fridge. Sometimes I just open the door of the fridge and smile. As for the cooker, well, I've had a fry up on it. I've made homemade savoury pies in the oven. The other day I made homemade jerk chicken and pizza. My journey on the cooker has just begun. That's all down to you and your staff. That is powerful. I've been blessed for you guys entering my life. And obviously he means you guys and all the donors and everybody that was a part of that. And I'd just like to echo that as my personal thank you to the ACTS team and the donors. The ACTS team are the kindest, and I'm talking about Rona actually, and most forgiving people to an advocate like me, because I don't always follow the rules and I don't always get it right. Well, I rarely get it right, but the emails are so lovely and they're so supportive, and the difference you're making with your organisation, all the lovely people that obviously come on board and donate and blah, 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 is just amazing. And as Rona said, through the food bank, we've made, well, I think over 200 requests in 3 years. And you have met all of them, or are about to, I think. So, and it's about £35,000, so it's a lot of money. So it's amazing. And one referrer put it this way: My client has approached many organisations after a flood in his property without success, and the local MP has directed him to the food bank and ACTS because he knows that it will work. And the client now has his double bed and his fridge freezer. So thank you very much. I hope that wasn't too much or too little. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Alison. Thank you. Oh, you've got me all choked up. It really is our privilege to be partnering with you, and you're not a naughty advocate. You're wonderful.
I am a bit naughty sometimes because I don't read everything. I'll try better.
We love you dearly. Thank you, Alison.
Welcome.
Our second advocate this morning is Jo Nags, who works for Gateway M40, an independent betting money advice charity based in Collyhurst in Manchester. Jo has actually only been with us for a relatively short time, posting her first request in June last year, but has quickly become one of our most active advocates. And I feel like we have been working together for much longer. Jo has single-handedly posted an incredible 144 requests in less than a year, and her passion and energy for helping those in need is inspiring. Jo, over to you.
Am I unmuted? No. Oh, thanks, Rona. That was nice things for you to say. ACTS is just the most wonderful charity that I've ever come across, and it amazes me. The work that they put in, the donors are absolutely amazing. They've changed the lives of people in North Manchester. Like, I can't even tell you the difference that a fridge freezer would make to somebody, something that we would take for granted. A fridge freezer, a bed, fresh, clean bedding that they've been able to wash in their own washing machine it's unbelievable. But you asked me to speak about a story of hope, and there's one family in particular that touched us, and it was going back into December, where the mum had got in contact with us to say that the benefits had been capped, and they'd been capped and they'd been stopped. Dad had not eaten for 5 days. Mum hadn't eaten for 2 days. Dad told us that if they didn't get any help, he would have to go out and shoplift to get food for the children's tea. Sorry. In absolute desperation, we had been kindly been given an Asda voucher from a client that we'd helped with the debt problems that was gifted to us. So we gifted it within 20 minutes. I was at the house with an Asda voucher for them to see them through. Within half an hour of me getting back to the office, I'd put my request on ACTS, and I think by the time I got home from work that night, that request was met for gas, electric and a food shop. When I rang Mum and told her, she sobbed. She sobbed because she wouldn't have known what to do without your help. It's just amazing. Once I'd gone round with the second voucher for the £150, she opened up to me and told me that a fridge freezer was on its last legs. The freezer wasn't freezing. She had nowhere to store fresh milk, fresh veg, anything that we take for granted with that fridge freezer. So again, the wonderful ACTS provided the fridge freezer, and the difference it made to Mum's life. I can't even begin to explain the difference that it makes. So within the work that we do, we then worked with the DWP to have Dad's benefits reinstated. Due to his mental health, he'd missed an appointment, and they stopped all his benefits through no fault of his own. And Mum sometimes rings now just to ask how we're doing, and she likes to just check in and I've actually started promoting on TikTok, and Mum actually found us for Gateway M40 on TikTok, so she likes to engage with us that way as well. And you're just amazing. I could go on and on and on with. I've been thinking for days who the hope that you give to people is just, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I don't know what else to say, because I'm going to end up crying like a baby as normal. So thank you for the hope that you bring to North Manchester. I don't know what we would do without you. I really don't. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Jo. I can't believe you're on TikTok.
Not very good at it.
Certainly, I wouldn't know where to start. Thank you ever so much, Alison and Jo, for sharing. Yeah, I'm not one much to well up, but even you got me welling up, goodness me. So, you know, what I'd love to get across to any donors on this call is that, you know, we just picked 2 advocates that we know who use Accessibility Live, but I know there's plenty of advocates on this call. Some have put stuff in the chat, but they would say the same, that actually what I love, Alison, is when you said that, you know, a referrer is saying, well, you know, people are going everywhere and they can't find help, but they do find help here. And that's just wonderful. That's what we want to do. And we've always said to churches and charities, if you're able to cover this need yourself, great. But where you aren't, we want to be a resource. And it's an absolute privilege for us to be able to do that. So thanks for sharing those stories from the ground. Brilliant. Well, we're going to have a time for Q&A now. So if you do have a question, this is your moment. You can do that by writing it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on it, or you can wave at me and I might spot you, or you can raise your hand. Oh, I've got a hand here from House Group. I don't know your name, so I'll ask you to unmute and you can ask us your question.
My name is actually David, not House Group. I've supported and prayed for Act 45 almost from when it began, but I'm very ignorant about lots of things. I do pray for you every day and give, but I wondered how people know about you. Is it only in towns where there's an advocate?
So good question. So the way we've grown has been organic, as you'll have known over the years. So when we bring on a new church or charity partner, we ask them to spread the word through their church congregation, if they're a church, or different ways that they can do that through using social media, with mixed success, to be honest, and we're looking at that at the moment. But so one way is that a church comes on and tends to bring on a little flurry of donors in their area. But more generally, in the past, we used to see that people Googled, I want to help someone who needs money. I mean, some of the people have literally just found us by searching. Social media is another way. We do some limited adverts and looking to try and get in front of different people. And we were referenced in an article on BBC News yesterday, just ways to kind of keep getting in front of people. We've always got that challenge of, if we put loads of money behind some massive advertising campaign and all the requests got met, and then all the other donors are like, what's this even about? Because there wouldn't be any live requests there. So we've always sought to do it organically. But as I mentioned earlier, we have now looked at some grant funding. There's scope in the future, who knows, for getting businesses involved. But primarily the model is, if a local church or charity is also making people aware of the giving side, it does seem to be still bringing on new donors every week. And we're very grateful for regular donors like yourself who have been with us through the journey and continue to support these needs. Andrew.
Hello, Jenny.
Hi, Andrew.
And hello, everybody else, Rona and Katie and Julian. I have been an ACTS advocate for several years now, 6 or 7, I think. And I always remember meeting you, Jenny, at the floods in Mythenroyd in December 2015, which is when we really kind of upped our game really around ACTS. I'm just really here because it's the first time I've ever been in the same room as all four of you, Jenny, Julian, Rona and Katie, and is it Carol? Did you say Carol? And I am going to say a massive thank you on behalf of the people of Calderdale for the work that you've enabled us at Noah's Ark to do. In the last 5 years, we've arranged 1,300 debt relief orders at our little charity. We've written off £15 million of problem debt, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without ACTS. So I think that you, maybe Julian, when you thought about doing this, we were thinking about how you'd help those individuals, but it is much bigger than that, because our charity wouldn't be where it is today without ACTS. And we are the #1 arranger of debt relief orders in the UK, and that's all because of ACTS. I don't know how many, because I haven't looked, but I don't know how many hundreds of the last 1,300 debt relief orders you paid for, but it's hundreds of them. And though, I mean, I'm this massive fan of the debt relief order, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that changes lives. Selfishly, I also want to thank you personally, because I love my job. I absolutely adore the work we do here. And you have made my project something which is, I think, we're significant nationally, really, because of the volume of work we do and the impact we have on people's lives and the avenues and doors that have been opened because of our success. And that success is, you share that, you absolutely share that. So for me, this is heartfelt gratitude that I'm trying to give you here, really, because I come to work every day at 7 o'clock, much to my wife's disapproval. And I work 50 hours a week here at this little charity, again, much to my wife's disapproval, but you facilitated that. And our change in the last few years is massive, and it is massively down to you. So I am eternally grateful to you personally. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. It's really kind. Thank you. Lovely to hear.
Thanks, Andrew. Matt, I'll come to you in a minute. So just picking up from a couple of questions as well. So do you let organisations such as CAB know about you? I'm a CAB advisor. So Citizens Advice, yes, so we work with a few Citizens Advice. We work with them here in York, we work with them in North Somerset, in St Helens, in Merseyside, and a variety of other ones. It's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes things will get spread, but it's just, what do they say? Information needs to be spread like 3 or 4 times for people to see it. And, Trussell Trust, another example. We keep working to get these words. I think it's harder for Citizens Advice. Rona may be able to know more about it, for them to actually promote it nationally. But we just are reliant on people to spread the word for us, and we would like to get to more Citizens Advice. Some areas the church works with the local Citizens Advice, so it's the church is our partner. But in some areas, we partner directly with the Citizens Advice office. So I wonder, Jan, how you heard about, you only came across us. I'm aware people just kind of come across us. There's another one about that. All the people I've mentioned have not heard of Acts 435. This is the big challenge. So everyone's waving at me. Pat's waving at me. Lindsay, now Matt, I've lost. Matt, have you still got a question?
Yeah.
Yes, there you are.
Yeah. Firstly, to echo what other people said, I work for Safe Families and we partner with you guys, and just a big thank you for how easy you guys are to work with, and our team love working with you. And just so, like, the resources that are provided through yourself are really often like a gateway to further relationship with the families that we work with. And there's maybe an impact beyond what you see of what you do there. But my question is, how are you seeing kind of the requests that are coming in change? How are you seeing a development in the resources that are requested? And I suppose, where do you maybe see that going in the future?
Do you want to answer that, Rona, from a point of view of kind of changes in the requests, because you see them all more on a day-to-day basis?
Apologies, I was just answering a question in the chat. Sorry, can you repeat that question, Matt? I promise I do pay attention.
Yeah, no problem. I was just wondering what sort of changes you'd seen in the sort of pattern of requests that come in for resources, and I don't know whether you plan to go into how that might change in the future.
Oh gosh, that is a good question. So I think we're seeing a lot more requests for appliances, for white goods. That's increased a lot. We've recently seen a lot of increased requests for debt relief orders, which we are having to manage the ebb and flow of. We are keenly aware of how life-changing they are for people in need. But obviously we're aware that we just want our donors to have a variety of requests they can give towards if debt relief orders aren't the things that grab their heartstrings. So we're trying to manage the balance of that on the website currently, but we are seeing an increase in those. Just as I think Emma was sharing earlier, just people are not, no matter how hardworking they are, the funds that they've got coming in are not covering the basic daily essentials, and it leaves no wiggle room for unexpected crises or the washing machine flooding the kitchen, the fridge feeder going on the blink, and the food banks especially, we're seeing a lot more requests coming through saying we're helping them with the food, but they've got nowhere to put it. They've got nowhere to keep it, and it's supplementing those requests as well. People are very grateful for the support of the food banks, but just getting them those extra things that the food banks aren't able to provide. I don't know necessarily that there's been a trend in one specific thing over the rest. It just is a steadily increasing need with charities who are doing their best, massively stretched, and nowhere else to turn. Everyone's reaching their limits. That's why we're so incredibly grateful for our wonderful donors who are sitting there wanting to step into that gap, which shouldn't be there but is, and meet that need. I feel like that was a slightly fluffy answer to your very good question, Matt. But yeah, I hope that gives you a general picture.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think Acts 45 works well when there's variety, and the great thing is there continues to be variety. It's just more of everything in some senses. But Lindsay, a question from you.
Yeah, it's more, well, a sort of a question within a feedback, really. You know, to echo what everybody else has been saying, I can't thank you enough for what you all give to us as people running our charities, as well as you know, for the beneficiaries that get the grants. You know, we're two women that created a charity out of huge need that we saw in our community, and we have other jobs that we do around the edges, and we're you know, the system is something that's really user friendly, and Rona's support in particular, because sometimes we're working really late at night to try to, you know, transpose the stories, anonymize them, think carefully about how we share, and so all those things. And at the moment I may get a loud knock at the door in a moment as a pile more stuff comes in from Amazon, you know, a tabletop 2-ring cooker for a person that hasn't got space to swing a cat, let alone an ordinary cooker in their home, a disability aid. But the key thing, I'm going back to the thing about the CAB for as one example, but many of the agencies refer to us and send, whether it's a midwife in the, we've had 3 referrals this morning alone from maternity care services in Torbay, and they don't have the time nor the brief or mandate to have the relationship ongoing with the people. And sometimes it's got to be about the dialogue with the beneficiary that unearths what they really, really need. We know that they need a carpets or a cooker or a fridge or all the things that come through our requests. But sometimes underneath it is one additional thing which will give them strength, hope, resilience, and enable them to make use of those goods. I have a woman that came in yesterday who's street homeless, severe rosacea and eczema to her face, greasy, stringy hair, has not showered, and admitted she's just given up on herself as a woman. She doesn't see herself as a female any longer. And whilst she needs food and whilst she needs clothing and all the things which we will source for her, and that your support enables us to do those things, underneath that we'll also be attempting to do something to be able to transform the sore, painful skin on her face. Just the time with her has enabled her to feel that she has hope, that she's a woman who can join our female gang and, you know, have people of her own tribe to be with. These are the interactions which is very hard for some of the organisations who would be perceived as, oh, grant kind of giving or sourcing. They're not in the position to be able to have that dialogue with people to really make it work properly, rather than just a quick fix of something. A cooker given today, somebody moves out the flat tomorrow, then emergency, and the cooker's left behind. This is about the continuation of people, and I think that's why the number of advocates may be small, but it's getting the right type of advocacy for this type of scheme. And I think that's one reason for managing that growth, rather than wanting to see it exponentially everywhere and anything, just giving out money for things, which is so vital. So that's something I wanted to feedback. And the final thing I wanted to do, which is sort of a question within that, is that I appreciate that this scheme it's powered our charity, as I think, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten who said it, maybe Matt earlier, but it's powered our charity to be what it is. We've created a good karma store, we've created our support services, the therapeutic services. We're teeny, tiny, and without this scheme, we wouldn't have been able to get off the starting blocks to do it. But nevertheless, we are very, very, very stretched and often stressed with the volume of need. And I know that you give to beneficiaries, individuals, but I do think that in the future, it would be wonderful to see Acts 435 looking at advocates and their support, some sustenance that could come in from donors, maybe some of your corporate sponsors that you mentioned, possibly for the future. But how could we be enabling? We're all voluntary 100%, but our running costs, everything we have to pay for, have gone through the roof because of operating the scheme. And it's really hard for us to get grant funding to be able to explain this process to people, to give us that core funding without adding another project of work on top. So I would make a plea to say, if there's any way that you can support small developmental advocates that need that extra, just an administrator, for example, for me, be like heaven, we could do so much more and so much better. So that would be my thoughts for the future.
Thanks, Lindy. Well, certainly you are heard, and we will take it back. Catherine, you had your, I'm aware of time, but Catherine, you had your hand up.
Well, yeah. It was just because I've seen in the comments that people are mentioning CAB. So I'm from Citizens Advice York, and we were originally doing it from a different advocate in York, but because of the cost of living, the demand was such that he suggested that I should become an advocate too. And ever since then, I can't tell you how much it's just helped so many people, and the speed of which that clients get helped is just so amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. Right, I'm conscious now. I just want to pick up David's point. David, as you put in the chat, that you've had a distinct lack of feedback in the thank you messages, but that by hearing today, you're hearing the difference of the way people help. I'm just want to apologise really, because it's our hope, and certainly with our improved website and system, it is definitely our intention that every request that is supported by donors does lead to a thank you, and that thank you then goes out by email or can also be viewed in their account. This is something that you know, is one of our USPs, and is something that we're really keen to keep ensuring happens. So I just wanted to send my apologies. Sorry if we haven't got to your question. We will have a slow look through it all. We'll save the chat, and where we know who you are, we'll get back to you individually. But I am conscious of time, and I just want to hand over to Julian before I wrap up. So Julian, a few words.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to keep people longer. It's been wonderful seeing you all today. I mean, really, really moving hearing your testimony. Thank you for David, Andrew, Matt, Lindy and Catherine for speaking as well. There are skeptics out there that said, I mean, I had great difficulty getting the idea off the ground. Some of you have heard my story before about this. The people in the church are far too busy to help those in need. Now, that's a terrible generalization, but I did find it very difficult. It's such a simple idea, and it's really taken off, and does make me very proud and very happy that we've helped several tens of thousands of people now. The skeptics said, you know, what will £100 do? I think that's what it was when we started, and they sneered at it. But, you know, if you haven't got any money and you haven't eaten for 5 days, 100 quid is a lot of money. And hearing you say that is so, you know, encouraging to all of us. And the need is great. I was privileged to have supper with the Archbishop of York last week, and we were talking about social justice for 3 hours, you know, and he knew all about ACTS, by the way, and was very supportive of it. And, you know, when we hear of 4 million children below the poverty line, it's hard to imagine that. When you imagine 9 children in every classroom in the country below the poverty line, that is just absolutely frightening. So, you know, the need is really there, and we're all doing our bit. And even though it's self-perpetuating financially, I'm there in the background. I'm always available to top up if we need it, and I've been, hopefully Jenny will confirm, supportive throughout, and in fact Jenny and I have gone on and done other hopefully important things together in the not-for-profit sector. I want to finish off by thanking I could talk for ages, but I won't. We're 2 minutes over and I hate finishing late. But I do want to thank Emma as our star guest today. She is one busy person. She's an absolute hero. She's a friend. I've worked with them at Trussell. I set up the Fairness Foundation. She's one of our trustees. A great woman. To have her today was really good of her. I can't thank her. I will be writing to her afterwards, but it was lovely to hear her speak. I thought, so thanks in her absence. Thanks to the wonderful team we have at ACTS, obviously led by Jenny, Katie, Rona, Carol. We have an amazing team, part-time workers who just run this, I mean, incredibly well. Thank you to Alison and Joe for their very moving testimony as advocates, and thank you all the advocates that work with us all year round and that have joined today. Fantastic work you do. And finally, thank you to the donors for giving up your time and providing your hard-earned cash to help others. I mean, you are absolute heroes. So, and it's amazing how God, thank God for providing. We don't advertise the funds. We want every penny to go to those in need. And God has provided for all these years this balance that Jenny talks about. It's an absolute seesaw. And at the beginning, we were saying, well, gosh, the need is enormous. Who's going to cough up? But every Christmas we fulfilled the need. It's been an absolute blessing. And there is someone out there who's looking after. So thanks to them too. I think we'll finish off there, Jen. Do you want to do a quick prayer for everybody, or have we got time?
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Jules. Yeah, so I'm just going to finish by praying. Thank you all so much for your time, and let's just thank God. Lord, we want to thank you for ACTS 45. I want to thank you for the way that you are intricately involved and that you do keep this balance between those who are giving and those who are being supported. And Lord, I just thank you that we can be a resource to churches and charities, and to hear their testimonies today of how it really is making a difference. Lord, we want to be an organisation that gives hope, and we do that together because no one person on their own can do this. It is as we come together that we give hope, that we provide that fridge. I just love that story. That is the image that I will take away of this gentleman opening the fridge, just to be excited that he's got a fridge, and that is so moving. And we thank you that we can be a small part of helping those in poverty. And Lord, we just pray for the campaign that Emma mentioned and for all that needs to be done to bring an end to food poverty and just to turn things around for those who are struggling in our nation. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. We are very approachable, so if you have burning questions, do email us admin@acts45.org.uk, or indeed you can hang around and ask us something now if you like. But have a good rest of the day.